Hey guys, well I know I haven't done a video in a couple of months, mainly because I've been really busy with work and also I went on vacation as well. So I haven't had time for another video until now. I made some time to do this video, so I'm going to review 3 movies for this video. And I'm going to review the Cabin Fever series, which I'm a fan of. I like this series. There's 3 in this series so far. Cabin Fever, Cabin Fever 2, Spring Fever, and Cabin Fever Patient Zero, which recently just came out. Okay, but before I do this video, I just want to say that it's gonna be spoilers. So if you haven't seen these movies, just don't watch this video. So I'm gonna start out with the first movie. I have this on DVD with this holographic slipcover. I also have it on the unrated director's cut on Blu-ray. So I'm gonna use this for the review since I like the Blu-rays more. And this movie was directed by Eli Roth. He made this feature film debut with this. After this, he made Hostel, Hostel Part 2, and he produced Last Exorcism, and unfortunately, that god-awful Last Exorcism Part 2 movie. But this was his first movie. So this was a horror comedy, so it have elements of horror. Not really scary though. That's one of the things. It's a horror movie, but it wasn't really scary. We have some fun stuff. It's a very fun movie. And what way to start out for Eli Roth's directorial debut. Okay, so this movie stars Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World, and also stars Giuseppe Andrews. So he had more of a minor role though. But he's the comic relief in the movie. He's a very fun character. And so this movie is about these 5 friends who just graduate college, and so they take a little trip up to this cabin in the woods. And while they're there, they run into some crazy people, which they find pretty weird. And then they get infected by this flesh-eating virus, and the virus infects them one by one, so it doesn't just affect all of them, just starts one by one, and they start panicking, trying to get out of there. And Eli Roth actually has some a little cameo in this movie. He plays this stoner, wants to smoke some weed with these characters. So he made you laugh quite a bit. And Giuseppe Andrews, who plays this cop Winston, who's the comic relief, he's sort of a party guy kind of character. So he brought humor to this movie as well. But I felt the horror and the comedy aspects were actually pretty well balanced. It wasn't all mixed up, mishmashed. Am I supposed to be scared? Was this funny? So balanced it very well. And the gore effects were pretty well done as well. There was actually scenes where this girl who's infected, she shaves her legs and starts cutting up her legs. And there was also this girl who got the virus on her face, and it starts melting, rotting away at her face. You see her teeth, sort of look like a rotted skeleton. Pretty gross looking. Then they find out the virus has gotten into the water right by the lake. So, Ryder Strong is the one who discovers that. So he tries to fight his way through these crazy people who want to now kill them because they're infected. And so he manages to escape, unfortunately not the other ones. However, he ends up getting infected, and that stuff leads right into the second movie. So all in all, this was a pretty good movie. Had pretty good acting, pretty good gore effects. Although, the story was pretty simple, though. It's just friends going up to a cabin, then they get infected. That's really what I had to say. So, if you don't some comedy aspects, that's probably not the movie for you. If you don't over the top gore, it's probably not the movie for you. But if you do, though, if you horror movies that are just all out outrageous fun comedies, so much fun to watch, and if you are a fan of gore, this is the movie for you. So this is definitely one of my favorite ones. It's my favorite one in the series. Pretty cool. Excuse me. And then came Cabin Fever 2, Spring Fever, which was directed by Ty West, who directed House of the Devil, The Innkeepers, The Roost, Trigger Man. And he did just direct this movie that came out recently called The Sacrament, which Eli Roth, by the way, produced. So, but unfortunately, Ty West disowned this movie because, had, problems while in post-production. Ty West went to make this movie. He filmed it in the same locations as the first Cabin Fever. So he went on to make this movie, and he edited the movie, showed it to Lionsgate, but Lionsgate hated it for some reason. And so they wanted to work something out with it, and and so but there was some delays with it. Then some time passed, and so Ty West then just went to direct House of the Devil because nothing basically happened with this movie, and finally while he was away making that movie, Lionsgate picked this movie back up and re-edited the whole movie from scratch without him being involved. And they, from what I read, they cut maybe at least 15-20 minutes of footage that Ty West made for this movie. So they cut it too short, so then the producers had to do some reshoots to make the movie almost 90 minutes long. So, and Ty West wasn't involved in the reshoots of this either. Then Ty West found out what was happening with this movie, and he tried to get involved in this re-editing of the movie, but the answer was no. So Ty West tried to get his name taken off the movie, replace Val Smithy, but they wouldn't let him do that either. So he disowned it afterwards. Alright, so that's basically the trouble this movie went through. And I think this movie was originally supposed to come out in the theater like the first movie did, but Lionsgate pulled it from a theatrical release. At least I think, though. So this was straight to DVD. Alright, so let me just get into this movie. So this movie picks up maybe the next day or 2 days later. It's not really fully established. And so it starts out with Ryder Strong reprising his role as Paul from the first movie. He was dumped in the water at the end of the first movie, so it starts out with him coming out of the water he was dumped into, and now the virus that he was infected by is now evolved into his body. So half his face is melted off. While he's he's coming out of the water trying to run through the woods to get to town, and while he's doing that, his skin is coming off. So then he gets hit by a bus, and his body just all out explodes. And then the cop from the first movie, Winston, played by Giuseppe Andrews, he reprised his role. So he comes by that site and says, "You just hit a moose." So he's funny in this movie too. I mean, and this the downfall to me was that they just had Ryder Strongness in it for that scene of the movie. So I really thought they should have taken advantage of the fact that they had him back and just give him a bigger role. But at the same time, he would have just died anyway, since obviously there's no cure for the virus in this movie. You just basically die. But at least they did take advantage of the fact that they had Giuseppe Andrews back, because they gave him a bigger role in this one than they did in the first movie. And so now the virus is in that water that Paul was left into, and so then this water company, Down Home Water, uses that lake that he was dumped into. They don't know though that he was dumped into that. So they use the water for their water company, make bottles of water, and they ship it to places. And so they ship it to this high school on the day of prom, and it's set around this kid who's a bit of a geek, and he has obviously a geeky friend too. He has a crush on this girl, but that girl has a boyfriend already, and that her boyfriend basically bullies him around, pushes him, threatens him. So so he's not really that popular of a guy. So now the bottles of water are being given out to the school. People are just drinking the bottles of water, and they use the bottles of water to make punch at the prom. So the kids at prom drink that punch, and so then now the virus happens at that prom. But I know that Ty West was trying to basically make this movie feel like the 70s or the 80s, so it was a disco prom. And also this movie did take a little more to the comedy direction, because that's what Ty West was aiming for. He was trying to make this movie into an outrageous, fun, disgusting comedy, much like Evil Dead 2 and Brain Dead, Dead or Alive, whatever you want to call it. So I I think he did like exceed at that part. Like he's making like I thought he did a pretty good job at this, at making it to like an '80s like. Well, it's not set in the '80s. Don't get me wrong with that. Like making it feel like an '80s like disgusting comedy. So he succeeded at that because like the gore effects in this movie were also pretty well done, just like the first movie. I mean, like when they were infected by the virus, they got like these sores on like their lips, their cheeks, and they were like projectile vomiting blood, like kind of like a hose. So it was like all out pretty disgusting. And like I should probably also talk a little bit more about Winston since I mentioned he had a bigger role. Like he found out that that the water that he dumped Paul in was now like contaminated and that's being used for that water company. So he at first tries to stop it, but then like this like CDC, like they Center for Disease Control, like they get involved in it. So he like escapes from there. Then they show up at the high school and then try to like contain it somehow, like quarantine the place, lock it all down. But since like there's basically no help for like these kids at that prom, so they're like basically trying to like kill them all. So like, but like the kids like in this movie are trying to like get out of that high school somehow, like trying to find a way out. But it's like pretty heavily guarded. So I think it's really all I gotta say about this one too. I mean like, oh, there's this one pretty cool gore effect I really did like. It was like the main guy like sees an infection on his hand, and then the girl he likes like she like then helps him out with amputating his hand, and like the blood just like spews all over the place. I mean, I really like that. It kind of did remind me of when Ash cut his own hand off at Evil Dead 2, and and his friend, the main guy's friend, like he gets the virus pretty worse. He gets it right in his private area. Man, that was pretty gross. And like there was also like Winston was trying to like basically flee the town as well, but never really find out where they were going either. And the ending of this movie, I'm gonna say, was pretty bad, and like there was just a couple things also disappointed me with this movie. Like there was things that they didn't continue in the first movie. Like there was this one kid who was like shouting pancakes, pancakes, and like he gets infected by the virus, but like we don't see like what happened to him, so like they didn't continue it in this movie. And also at the end of the first movie, there were these little kids taking water out of the water that Paul was dumped into, and they were making lemonade out of it, and then we saw the town's cops drinking that lemonade they made. So obviously we know they're infected, but they didn't continue that either, so that stuff basically was discontinued in this movie. So those things were a bit of a letdown. But I mean, like, I thought this was still pretty good. I mean, I really did like the gore effects. I mean, I thought the characters were pretty good. I just wish that Ryder Strong was in it more. And like, it was pretty fun, especially with like the stuff with Winston. So all in all, I still liked this movie. I mean, I thought Ti West did pretty good. And like, I'm hoping that maybe one day we can see his cut of the movie. So I'm hoping one day Lionsgate actually does. They release this movie on Blu-ray, the director's cut, Ti West's original cut. I'm sure that'll make him happy. Okay, and like I said, this one recently came out, Cabin Fever, Patient Zero. Oops. That's better. Alright, so this one, according to the things that I read online, it's supposed to be a prequel to the first movie, but at the same time it feels like it was a standalone movie, so like so it didn't really like have any kind of like lead-ins to like the first movie. So this one's directed by Kari Andrews, who also directed this movie called Altitude. That was a pretty okay movie. I think I may have liked this more than Altitude. So like this movie is like about these guys who are this like the main guy's getting married in this movie, so they so his friends decide to like throw him a bachelor party, so they take him on this cruise around the Dominican Republic, and so then they see this island, and so they decide to like basically take a break on that island. Although on that island is like lies this this lab there that's quarantined this guy who's played by Sean Astin, who from Lord of the Rings. And a funny thing, I mentioned like Lord of the Rings because, like it says right over here, unrelenting, gruesome, funny bloodbath. I loved it, and that was quoted by Peter Jackson, the director of Lord of the Rings. So it's kind of funny that the director of Lord of the Rings liked the first movie, and then later on, one of the stars from Lord of the Rings would star in the third movie of a movie that the director liked. So like Sean Astin's character, his name is Porter, and he's patient zero. Like he's infected by the virus. However, the virus does not affect him like everyone else. Like it doesn't eat away at his flesh. So like he's carrying the virus, but like it doesn't infect him. So they're trying to like study like what's going on, and like maybe he's like the cure for this virus. So they're trying to like create an antidote, but haven't like succeeded at that yet. So like he's trying to escape that that facility. So like then he like starts basically cutting his own hand open and like spreading it to like the other workers. Yeah, so that's what happened on that island. Well, these characters, all these friends, like don't know what's going on. So then like the virus somehow gets loose on the island, and then those guys that are throwing their friend bachelor parties start getting infected by the virus. So like the virus now is like eating away at their flesh, giving them those sores like what they gave them in the second movie. They start vomiting out blood. Something I should have also said about in the second movie, it felt like the virus was getting stronger because like in the first movie the virus like took like maybe a day, 2 days to like really kick in, to really eat at their flesh. And they were actually pointing that out in this movie, like now the virus is like starting to like basically get faster, like because in this movie basically like after they drank it, like later in the day the virus took effect. Now this one as well, like basically they are infected, and later in the day now the virus takes effect, so it's gotten stronger. And a weird thing about in this one is that like they were like describing the virus as like an organism, so it's sort of like maybe like a parasite of some sort that was like eating away at their bodies, like destroying them. And like when the friends are like getting infected in this movie, they try to like get help somehow, but obviously since they're on an island that which they think is uncharted, they don't know what to do. So like they finally see that the place isn't abandoned, like it's not uncharted, that there's other people on there. So they find like the lab, try to get help, but Sean Astin's character is like trying to like convince them that like that the doctor that's trying to like create an antidote isn't really trying to help you. He's trying to survive somehow. So like people in that lab start getting infected too by Sean Astin's character. And like the gore effects in this, I actually think are like the best gore effects out of all three movies. This one had the best gore effects. Like much like in the first one with that girl I mentioned that had her teeth showing, like her mouth was gone. It did the same thing in this one, but I actually liked it better in this one because her mouth actually opened. And like there was also like a pretty cool fight scene in this one, like where these two girls who are both infected by the virus, like they're fighting while like their skin was coming off. They were like literally ripping off pieces of their skin, and like their limbs were really cracking open. So that was pretty cool. And there was also like this part where like these people who are presuming are dead, they like get right up. They're basically looked like zombies, so it's as if like the virus like turned them into zombies. So that was kind of weird. I mean, this movie, of course, was still horror comedy mixed together, but it felt like it was more serious than the other movies. There was some bad lighting, and that's one criticism I have of this one. But I still think like the acting's pretty good in this one, and like I really like the gore effects. Like I said, this one had the best gore. I also really like this one part where like this guy who's infected like shoots this gun, then like his arm breaks right off and the gun goes right into his face. liked that part. And overall, I did like this one too. I think I may have liked it more than the second movie. So this one's definitely worth checking out too. And I think it's probably one of the best horror movies I've seen this year. So when I do my best horror movies, which is in December, I'm gonna add this one to it, along with a few other ones. And I think that's really all I gotta say. Alright, tune into one of my later videos. See ya.